The interactive media Depression Quest focused on expressing the serious nature of depression and attempts to let people without any experience in depression get a first-hand look at what many people have to go through. Choices exist, but not all are available, as it tries to show those playing that the obvious option isn't always available if you're too far sunken into depression. The images used along with the text become more obscured and static and desaturated the worse off you become, and the inverse should make things better for you as they clear up and less static is shown. The structure of Depression Quest can be seen as a journey in which you start somewhere and wind up reaching an ending. However, the road that you take and the paths in between can be left up to your own choice, as you can choose to go off in one way to take one path or to choose another. The structure map that I have created shows many of the paths one could take while they play the game. Eventually, when you reach an ending, it is but one of 5, each ending representing how much you have come out of depression or how far you have sunken into it. It isn't surprising that something which seeks to emulate the sensations of such deep depression would choose a bleak and at times visually incessant style. The bland gray background accentuates the sterility and lack of any hope one would have were they to find themselves in such a torment. Animated static, which overlaps most of the Polaroid imagery that accompany the scenarios you are presented with, serve only to irritate the eye and give off the gnawing sensation of mad depression slowly setting in. The entire media presentation is as basic as one could imagine. It isn't too unbelievable that a work with such a serious message wouldn't be too keen on flashy animations. Admittedly, this can be a shortcoming, as it could potentially keep some audiences away due to an unattractive aesthetic. However, for those who are accepting of the serious nature, one could find the animated static over the images to be a nice and subtle touch, which complements the simple overall approach. When you first begin playing, you are allowed to know a bit about who you will be playing as and other aspects about your new fictitious life. Once you know who you will be emulating, you are presented with a series of scenarios akin to a personality test or questionnaire form. The options you are given are not the most positive, but should you sink deeper into your depression, many of the more desirable ones will become crossed out and impossible to take. Notably, the option at the top of the list will always be the optimistic one, such as dedicating yourself to a night of hard work, but these options are always crossed out due to depression keeping you under constant lock and key. The game as a whole is easy enough to navigate, the only real difficulty being which decision to make, but if you keep it closer to who you are as a person, then it might just reveal something about yourself, and if you too may suffer from depression. There is emotion within the piece, primarily that which you feel for yourself. Personally, from my own experience, there were a few times that aggravated me about the character you play as, and some may not be able to relate at all to the experiences the work will throw at you. But at some level, you do start to care for the character you play as and the turmoil that takes over their life. It should be noted, however, that the experience can be more or less trivial to those who know what some of the more obvious methods are to navigate through the game. My own experiences with the media was almost unfazed. In part, it was due to being all too familiar with depression and what it can do to someone. There were many ironies I found throughout this work that made me scoff at the character we were forced to play as. But I also know that depression isn't something that is rational, and in its own way compromises rational thought. So for me, there was anger and hate at first, which turned to a tenuous understanding. To truly appreciate the game, I suppose one needs to understand that every now and then you don't have the power to overcome certain obstacles in your life. As Ian Bogost wrote, critics might argue that frail situations are not fun. Feeble characters do not wear shoes anyone wants to wear. And that may be true, but when it comes to the world we inhabit today, it is the vulnerable who deserve our empathy.